Welcome to Best Ball Study Hall. I am your host, Jeremiah Retzlaff. You can find me on X at Coach Retzlaff1. Let's start off and talk about capacity. We're doing all these drafts on UnderDog. Yours truly, I have about 45 drafts outstanding right now. I'm not on the clock, but I have 45 drafts, slow drafts going. What goes into that? For me personally, there's the fast drafts versus the slow drafts. I am trying to find a way to maximize my capacity. So, in doing that, I'm going to acknowledge that I can't sit down enough times for live drafts to the capacity with which I would like to draft. A lot of people have cut down on their dynasty leagues because they realize they hit this threshold where they can't manage due to capacity. So I would encourage listeners at home, your redraft, your keeper leagues, your cumulative dynasty leagues, maybe you're in some spread leagues, you have different contests that you enter in the fall. Try and keep into account what your capacity is in the fall and optimize it so you can have the most fun. With best ball drafts, you are allowed to optimize. So any excess that you get beyond what your capacity is for the fall for managed leagues, I really stress the importance of drafting on underdog because you can scratch that itch. Now, within that, for underdog, you have the fast drafts, you have the slow drafts. What can we gain from having a bunch of drafts on the clock, in the queue, ready for slow drafts? The benefit of that is you can max capacity. Now, for me, what I do is I go to bed between 8 and 10 o'clock at night. I get up at 4 on weekdays and I go to the gym. So I wake up 4 o'clock, I clear the deck, and I get all my drafts cleared. And then about every 3 hours, I can check 7 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 4 o'clock, all throughout the day. I can just go clear the OTCs that I have. But I would encourage you, if you're doing all these fast drafts, try and take some time to get some slow drafts in the queue and notice how it will increase your capacity for drafting. So right now I am in about 45 drafts. It's very relaxing for me. I think that's counterintuitive to a lot of people, but that's just something that I practice. Part of what helps get me through the day, I have some coffee about 2 or 3 hours after my natural awakeness wanes. And then as the afternoon goes on, I like to drink some green tea with some honey. So I start off with some alpha waves in the morning for coffee. And then my caffeine in the afternoon is based through matcha green tea with the honey. And I'm getting beta waves where I'm staying alert and awake, but I'm not too jittery. The benefit of drinking your coffee, drinking your green tea, is the fact that you can accomplish the same effect as far as you want caffeine and you want energy. So, to segue to best ball, we have some coffee players right at the top, right? Bijan Robinson, Brandon Ayuk. But lower and later, a green tea player, maybe somebody like Devin Singletary, Jacoby Myers. You have players that will make your lineup on given weeks and boost your team and level it off. So sometimes the job gets done with a stud and a caffeine, an alpha wave, a coffee player. Then other times you have players on your build who will be green tea players where they get you through to advance, but they may not necessarily be every week winners, but they get the requisite points for you to fill out your team. Now, with all that said, let's go to one of these drafts that I have on the clock. It's Best Ball Mania. I have Patrick Mahomes as my quarterback. Zamir White is my only running back at the moment. I've started off with 5 receivers: Garrett Wilson, Drake London, Xavier Worthy, Marquise Brown, DeAndre Hopkins, and then Travis Kelce. So with my one quarterback, I have Xavier Worthy, Marquise Brown. I put my head through the shredder and I came away with 2 of the 3 Chiefs. I'm benefiting right now from this Rashi Rice news. I've lucked out. I have Worthy and Brown of the triumvirate of Chiefs receivers. Right now, it's not looking so good for Rashee Rice. I think there's going to be some dips there for him. So right now in this build in Best Ball Mania, I have two of the receivers who will keep most likely their ADP in Xavier Worthy and Marquise Brown. Then, of course, I have Patrick Mahomes with Travis Kelce. So I'm at the wraparound turn, the 9-10 turn. I have one person in between me. My three players in the queue, I have Brian Robinson Jr., Chase Brown, and Austin Eckler. Based on ADP, right, I'm at pick 107. I am going to select Brian Robinson Jr. He is a green tea player. He's not going to be RB1 or even in the top 5, but he will have requisite weeks where he posts in my lineup. And with Jaden Daniels, who, remember, he can freeze linebackers, keep defenders off balance, and that can open things up for Brian Robinson to carve things up in the running game. Now, I also have Austin Eckler here. I'm just going to make sure that I'm trading off between Brian Robinson Jr. and Austin Eckler. And this time I will click Brian Robinson Jr. The thought behind that is I don't know if it's Brian Robinson Jr. or Austin Eckler, but what I do know is I like the idea of the Washington running game being very effective. So I will click Brian Robinson. And then in between these two picks, I'm hoping that I can click Chase Brown, who has a 119 ADP. I would be picking 110. So in two picks in this Best Ball Mania, I will have Chase Brown hopefully fall to me. If not, I have Austin Eckler. So I have 3 for 2, right? There's 2 picks between me, and I had 3 running backs that I could go towards. I went towards Brian Robinson Jr. Now I have Austin Eckler and Chase Brown. The chances of Chase Brown and Eckler getting taken on me are very low, but if it happens, it's okay. We'll go further down in our queue. Maybe I'll go grab some Javonte Williams. Maybe I'll get a green tea player in Devin Singletary. So that's my Best Ball Mania draft that I have so far. I'll go over to another one. Let's see. I call this draft Yank the Steering Wheel. And for yanking the steering wheel, let's read it off. I'm up to my last pick here. So I have a 2-5-7-3 build. The 2-5-7-3 build. My quarterbacks are CJ Stroud, Caleb Williams. My 5 running backs are Alvin Kamara, Jonathan Brooks, Blake Corum, Khalil Herbert, and Audric Estime. So I have with Caleb Williams some Khalil Herbert. Maybe there'll be some involvement in the pass game, but also Khalil Herbert, maybe he gets traded, and then this is a busted up stack connection. But for now, I have Caleb with Khalil Herbert. Going down to my receivers, and I call this Yank the Steering Wheel because I took Justin Jefferson 101. Justin Jefferson, DJ Moore, and Stephon Diggs with 24 and 25. Keenan Allen, DeAndre Hopkins, Jalen Polk, and then Michael Wilson. Michael Wilson, unfortunately, we have the news of Zay Jones signing with the Arizona Cardinals. The way I would just visualize this in my head is when you flush the toilet that second time and you don't let the water fill back up, and it just raises the water level, you're like, uh-oh, I've got a clogged toilet. So really what's happening with Zay Jones is he's clogging up the toilet for Michael Wilson. So right now, Michael Wilson isn't looking like such a great pick. I expect there to be a dip, but we adjust and we move forward. This won't necessarily win or lose this entry for me, but it's something that we can take note of. Zay Jones gets a good landing spot, and I have been away from Zay Jones holding off. I have been optimistic that Zay Jones could land on a team. So the beauty is Zay Jones, I can look at my pre-NFL draft teams and go see the smattering of shares that I have of him and see if he linked up with any Cardinal stacks that I have. My 3 tight ends are Dalton Schultz, Cole Kmet, and Jonnu Smith. So if you notice, Stroud is with Dalton Schultz, and then I have Caleb Williams with Cole Kmet. And then I really love Jonnu Smith, again, a green tea player in that electric coffee offense that are the Miami Dolphins. Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Devon Achane, Raheem Mostert, and now Jalen Wright. Everybody's hyped up about Jalen Wright. Jalen Wright is taking one to the house against somewhat air and somewhat some defenders. Remember, they're not really doing much of any contact at all, but it's fun to get hyped and watch these X clips out there. So what I want to do with my last pick, I have a 2573 build here. I am going to go in the direction of getting another running back. This is a wide receiver dominant platform, right? We want to have 3 wide receivers and we can have a 4th wide receiver fill our flex. I was having a good conversation with MKE 1289 on X and basically talked about the notion of if you have your first set of wide receivers who you're so confident in, you can go and end up taking another running back or 2 in your build because you have such faith in the earlier bet of your wide receivers paying off. So in this instance, I have Justin Jefferson, DJ Moore, Stephon Diggs, Keenan Allen, and DeAndre Hopkins as my top 5 wide receivers. I'm very hyped about that, and I really should, based on the logic of my earlier bet on my receivers, I should feel free now to roster construct and go and grab another running back. You see a lot of 5 running back builds on UnderDog. So here I have 5 so far. Again, it's Kamara, Jonathan Brooks, clickety click on Jonathan Brooks. That's not Morse code. That's just me clicking Jonathan Brooks. How many times you hear the click and the tap on him? Blake Corum, Khalil Herbert, Audric Estime. Audric Estime, another green tea player that will lift boats for you and get some touchdown equity for your teams. I am going to go with Isaac Guerrero. He's just a high upside lottery pick. And now I'm really excited with my build that I have there. And I close it out round 18. What's the risk on Isaac Guerrero? The upside is so huge, but I'm only paying round 18 prices. So when you're clicking on round 18, really just think about what's at stake. It's really low stakes. So take different shots, smatterings, and flatter exposures, chop it up real nice, and you can end up having some huge payouts when it comes tournament time and for our playoff season. Let's go to a puppy. Let's see what I have so far. I've got Patrick Mahomes, Devon Achane, Tyreek Hill, and Stephon Diggs. So 1 quarterback, 1 running back, and 2 receivers. I've really been dominantly drafting receivers, and I may anchor a running back, although I have been doing a smattering of 2 running back early builds. But here we have Patrick Mahomes, and I have Isaiah Pacheco and Xavier Worthy queued up. I really do like the idea of Xavier Worthy with Patrick Mahomes, but to differentiate, that Best Ball Mania team had Mahomes with Worthy, Rice, and Kelsey. Now let me do something different. I am going to click Isaiah Pacheco. I draft him, and I'm going to have now Patrick Mahomes, the passing game of the Chiefs, and the running game of the Chiefs with Isaiah Pacheco. I am probably going to be set at running back for a long time. I will try and play some catch up at receiver. So right now, my 2 receivers are Tyreek Hill and Stephon Diggs. And then it's possible I could end up with Tua later in a stack. I've been talking up big about round 7 to 10 quarterbacks, how valuable they are as a second quarterback. Right now, I have one of the elite quarterbacks in Patrick Mahomes, and I'm setting up possibly for later having Tua to go along with Patrick Mahomes. Let's do one more draft and then get on our way out. I have a mini schnauzer. So far, I'm quarterbackless, right? Devon Achane is my running back. Trey Benson is my second running back. I have 1 tight end in George Kittle. And then I have just Justin Jefferson. There's a caffeine player to start. a coffee player, Mike Evans, Keenan Allen, Amari Cooper, Chris Godwin. So I'm setting up with Evans and Godwin to wait and push down quarterback later with Baker Mayfield. So I'm set up very good there. I really like what I have with Amari Cooper because Deshaun Watson's value is so much, his ADP is so depressed. And I like the upside, the sexiness that I have in Achan and Benson. Benson has the opportunity. I think he'll be boom bust. So he may end up being a coffee player, those alpha waves for us. We know for sure Devon Achan is the double shot espresso. So do I want to go with a quarterback here? I don't feel the pressure just based off of the fact that I have so many players and receivers that I could stack later. So I'm looking at my queue. I've got Brock Bowers. Do I want to add him with George Kittle, play a little bully ball? I'm not so sure I want to go there, but I probably could use a running back. And earlier I had talked about Brian Robinson, Austin Eckler, splitting up the Washington backfield. So I am actually going to go with some Austin Eckler here as my third running back. That way, I'm getting some requisite share of a backfield. This is the beauty of volume. All right, I have so many drafts outstanding, and I am able to, in the earlier draft we had in the show, get Brian Robinson. And now, in this instance, I go and get myself some Austin Eckler. You know what you know, but you also need to be good at knowing what you don't know. And I think that is very beneficial to us in best ball fantasy football here on Underdog. So thank you all for being here, whether it's your coffee, whether it's your green tea, or maybe it's a nice beer or glass of wine for you. Whatever you got going on, I appreciate you taking the time. This has been Best Ball Study Hall, and I'm Jeremiah Retzlaff. I will see you later.